Hey everybody, it is time for our special edition E3 2014 NF Magazine NF Show podcast. Evan and I have been looking forward to this all year. We look forward to it every year. My name is Noah, in case this is your first time watching our show. And just so you're familiar with who my wonderful co-host is, here's Evan.
How's it going? And I just want to say, not only is it great that it's E3, it's like Christmas for us video games fans, but it's also great to be looking at Noah's face once again on the NF show.
Yeah, it has been a bit of a challenge, and even though I look a little bit more normal today than Evan said that I looked last week, it's all a facade. But it was worth it. I had to put a lot of extra effort to get over here to my little space, and hopefully the quality is good for our viewers out there in YouTube land, and also for those of you who are listening to us audio only on iTunes. Later this week, we're going to be posting the episode. But gosh, I guess tomorrow I better get cracking on the editing tonight. But thank you for waiting. We're doing this on Tuesday versus our normal Monday time because Nintendo's press conference was today, and we definitely wanted to wait for that and make sure we had all the information versus making you and us wait or do random show scheduling. So we're one day later than usual, but we have so much to talk about, and because of that, we're going to skip some of our regular stuff. We have so many games to talk about, we're going to be skipping what we've been playing, but rest assured, Evan and I have great stories for next week concerning indie titles and, of course, Mario Kart 8, and we are going to skip the feedback because we want to hear all of your reactions from what you saw today as well. Are you excited? Are you confused? Are you disappointed? We want to know everything that you think. So please send in your feedback to show@nfmagazine.com if you want to do email, or you can just leave comments right below this video if you're over on our channel at YouTube, youtube.com/nfmagazine. So with that said, first of all, the thing that I definitely wanted to touch on first was, and we talked about this quite a bit, Evan and I, was there was not a live press conference, and instead, like last year, we had a pre-recorded show. This year it was called a digital media event instead of a Nintendo Direct E3 edition or whatever it was called last year, which suggested it could be very much like a Direct with just a different title, or it truly could be something unique. And after the teaser video that we saw that was peppered with Retro 64 comedy skit antics for today's event, I think it was pretty safe to assume there might be something unique. But Evan, I was curious, what did you think overall of this show, of it being pre-recorded and not being a live show, just on its own merits and compared to the media show from last year?
It was just 1,000 times better than last year. I would think almost everyone can agree. I was definitely someone that was skeptical of them. I thought that they were just renaming it, but it was going to be the same old as last year, and thankfully that wasn't the case. They proved me wrong. I think they did a great job with the digital media event, and Nintendo showed that they can do something that's not necessarily a live press conference, but can stand pretty much toe-to-toe with what other companies are doing. And I feel like they finally found a good solution here if they don't want to do the live press conference. So I was happy to see it work out for them on the second time, because last year I went back through my tweets of the show, and it was a catastrophe. It was a train wreck. The stream didn't work. It felt like just a plain direct, and here we have production values. We have them playing to the audience. We get to see developers behind the scenes in a documentary-style featurettes. Just incredibly well-paced, and it was a fun show to watch.
I totally have to agree with you. I felt that the production values on this were very impressive. I feel that Nintendo's been on a streak lately with each of the directs that we've seen within the last month leading up to this digital media event have just been much more impressive and fancier, for lack of a better word, than what we're used to. It's not just a person standing against a white background a la the old Apple commercials from many years ago. There's actually sets, there are skits, and for me at least, I felt that the Robot Chicken introduction and the little bumpers in between some of the segments were really funny, and I felt they were actually a lot funnier than the Retro 64 stuff. When I saw that they were opening with another skit, I'm like, oh man, this is not going to be funny, just like the last thing. But it actually was really good. It made me chuckle several times, and even better after that is I really liked how the games were presented. Instead of seeing all of these pre-rendered cinemas or movies that we've seen for so many games during the previous day's press conferences, we actually got to see a lot of gameplay, and there were really nice quality interviews with the developers, and the developers aren't talking about buzzwords and like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so exciting. They're talking about their design philosophies. How did the game come to be? What were they trying to pursue? What makes the game unique compared to predecessors in the series? Especially with Nintendo, there were several sequels and iterations on franchises in this show, but they talked about how just because you're seeing another Zelda game or you're seeing another Yoshi game doesn't mean it's like what you've played before. There's something special about it, something to look forward to. And I really appreciated that. And goodness, I appreciated not seeing any severed heads or gruesome bloody gore. I can watch horror movies. I like horror movies. I can handle gore and stuff like that. But I was seriously shocked multiple times with just how gory and gruesome the conferences were yesterday. I don't think there was even any warnings before the conference show that may contain mature content or anything like that. It was just really, really violent and a little bit disappointing. And it reminded me of one of the things that I really like about Nintendo, for better or worse for some people, but you can count on something that's family friendly, even if that is detrimental for one of the surprise games that was couched in a later trailer, in addition to many others that showed up after the event. Did you have any other comments, Evan, that you wanted to share?
Just that the beginning with Iwata and Reggie was so well done. They knew exactly what they were doing with that. I mean, I'm guessing they got a commercial director, a music video director. I'll be really curious to see who they got for that skit with the stunts and the CGI and everything. It was entertaining, but it also, I mean, it's Nintendo, I think, thinking about how this video is going to work in the social media age, and it's just going to be a GIF that we're going to see for the next year, if not longer. And it did a great job. And I don't know if Sakurai was involved or whatever, but he's brilliant at trailers, if he's the person behind the Smash Brothers trailer, and how they always seem to just be this tier above everything else. I feel he has to be involved creatively with that. So a lot of well done things. I guess if I could be nitpicky, and I'm going to be, I would just wish that in the future maybe we got a demo or two in Nintendo Direct or digital media event, something that was more live gameplay than just trailers or brief footage. I think would add the icing on top. But overall, it was a solid presentation.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. When I was watching that initial brawl between Reggie and Iwata, I thought it was one of my favorite E3 moments, probably of the show. It was just so hilarious, and it really plays to the fans. And there really was a lot of fan service, whether it was in the comedy skits or just things that were shown in the show. And that kind of alludes to our conclusions that we're going to reach and our overall verdicts for what we've seen from Nintendo at this E3. But before we jump to that, I really would like to talk about the games that were shown, because we did see a lot of games, ones that we didn't expect, and ones that were rumored, and ones that we, of course, expected. But with that in mind, we want to go through as many of the games as we possibly can, but I felt it might be nice just to start out with Evan and I naming what our top 5 games were that we saw today in the show. Evan, what were yours?
Well, Zelda. I think that was the first wow moment of the past 2 days for me with games. I feel like a lot of the stuff across the Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo conference, there were a lot of predictable games there. And Zelda, it had been talked about it was going to be shown there, but you never know exactly what's going to pop up. And I think, Noah, both of us predicted that it was going to be a teaser, and it definitely was. I think there was about a minute of footage, but it was just awesome to see first HD Zelda, first new Zelda in HD, and to hear Naoma hit on the things that I've always wanted or have been wanting. The open world, the non-linear play structure that's coming back from A Link Between Worlds, and obviously reminiscent of the first ones, just blew me away and put the biggest smile on my face. And I love the art style direction. It's more of a Skyward. It's more Skyward Sword, but a little change. But there's a sci-fi element, I feel. It's almost kind of a little Twilight Princess-ish with that light bow that he throws off at the end, and the monster he's facing there, and the fact that Link is not wearing the green tunic. He's wearing, it looks like some kind of like blue hoodie that he throws off. So I'm curious if they're going to have some customization and Link, what he could wear, if he could be a male or female character. So many questions it brings up, but I've biggest smile on my face. Only sad thing is it's 2015, and when it comes to Zelda games, they always come later than their first given date, so it may be a way off. Splatoon, which we've talked about, we were both tweeting about, we talked about it a lot today during the show. A great surprise. Everyone says, where is Nintendo's new IP? And here we got it, and in an unlikely way, we got apparently a 4-on-4 third-person action game shooter, and it just talk about once again this art style that is fantastic with these very animated characters that have cartoon qualities. And I think you brought it up. It reminded you of The Blob.
Yeah, it really did. The art aesthetic of the game, from the color palette to the architecture of the levels, is very De Blob-esque, and De Blob is a franchise that's near and dear to my heart. So I immediately recognized that and was very excited by just that alone.
Yeah, and I love the idea, the concept for it I just found intriguing. It's obviously, I feel like it has a Mario Sunshine connection with these like water guns or whatever where you're spraying stuff. But instead of trying to clean up the dirt and mud, you're trying to actually create it with these paintball-like devices. And it looks like there's a lot of strategy. There's going to be online. It's once again, unfortunately, a 2015 game, which is kind of become a storyline throughout all the shows for E3, but Splatoon I just feel like has so much promise, and I'm really curious to see how Nintendo handles it, because I don't know if you saw it, but I believe Reggie Fils-Aimé was on IGN, and he said that what Nintendo's hoping to do with Splatoon is what Mario Kart did to the racing genre, Nintendo hopes Splatoon will do to the shooter genre.
Oh wow, that's really interesting, and frankly, I think it could be even bigger than that. I think there's really a chance for this family-friendly arena shooter, of all things. It could be really big. And Splatoon, spoiler alert, is my number one game out of my top 5 games. I'm cutting in since Evan's talking about it right now. But it didn't start out that way. When I remember watching it in the digital media event, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. It's kind of weird. I don't really know what to expect." It wasn't until I watched the Treehouse stream and watched the guys from Treehouse play it and narrate through it for a good, I don't know, 30 minutes potentially, that the thing it reminded me a lot of was actually MOBAs, like League of Legends and Dota 2. And it doesn't have the intricacy yet, or the diversity yet in it that would really put it on par with those types of games, but it could be up there and be really significant depending on how it's developed, depending on how it's marketed. It's really fun to watch just as a spectator and hear people narrate like, "Oh, well, this is an area that they need to focus on strategically," or "This was a really good way to take an advantage and expand upon it," or like, "Oh, this team may not be able to pull out a win until the very last minute because this," and it was a lot like watching online competitive gaming on the PC, and that it's actually available on a console, and that it's something that anybody can watch. It's not going to be something where it's like, "Oh, we can't show kids this." I thought was really a shrewd and awesome tactic, and there's so much potential there. It's really Nintendo's domain to expand upon that and exploit it as much as possible, and I hope they do.
Yeah, and for them to kind of equate it to Mario Kart, hopefully Nintendo is true behind those words. Hopefully we don't see these really cool characters, and I don't think we will, but be interchanged for Mario and company.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully. But I'm like you. It's about the marketing and handling. And is there going to be a single player mode, or is this basically all about online multiplayer, and what will that mean for how it's distributed? Could this be a free-to-play game, like Nintendo's first big push behind free-to-play? How would the online infrastructure hold up? What kind of other modes are they looking at? I believe we both were watching the live stream, though, and I believe people spotted sniper rifles within
Mhm.
the mode and special weapons, and then they kept bringing up that this mode was called Turf Wars, so this may just be one of many other modes, and how they can kind of take this concept of you're not necessarily shooting other people, but you're trying to work with the environment and overtake it, how that could be used in other traditional game modes or totally new game modes. Because you could obviously see how capture the flag would be fun, spraying your paint to then be able to maneuver across the stage faster to get someone else's flag. So really, really exciting. To move on, because I feel like we could talk about Splatoon all day, because it's just so exciting to see a new Nintendo IP and one just so full of creativity. Super Smash Brothers obviously continues to look great. I mean, enough said. People are probably missing our show to watch the Smash Brothers tournament right now, and I don't blame them. The game looks great. One game that wasn't shown at the Nintendo Digital Media event that I'm pretty stoked about is Fantasy Life. And I don't know if you saw that, Noah, but it's a 3DS game from Level 5 that's coming out this
Mhm.
October. And the trailer is just great. I think people have said it's almost like a mix between Dragon Quest and Animal Crossing. So, I mean, those two words right there kind of tug at my heartstrings and get me interested. So I'm very excited to see that finally come over and to play that. It's coming out in October, though, when everything comes out, but I think
Yeah.
I'll have to make time for it. And then finally, a game that I've talked about over and over since we started this podcast is Xenoblade Chronicles X, formerly known as Monolith Software's X project. So super stoked that they got a new name. Bummed though that it's 2015. And if you would have watched the live stream, it was great. We got to see footage. It definitely looks a lot like Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah.
A little more epic and stuff, but I'm still pretty excited for it. So those were definitely the 5 games right now, even though Nintendo has a mystery 3DS game, and I'm guessing a couple more 3DS games to probably reveal over the course of this show, since this all basically today centered on Wii U.
Yeah, that is very accurate. In fact, the digital media event, I think the only 3DS game of note or that was highlighted significantly was Smash Brothers on 3DS. And I mentioned earlier that my number one game on my top 5 was Splatoon, just because I see so much potential, and I'm really excited to see something fresh. It's
I'm
really
giddy.
weird, though, to be excited about a game that so far appears to be online multiplayer only. Now, that could change a lot. There could be a single-player mode, there could be bots, but it reminds me a lot of Titanfall, of all things. And I remember thinking, how can they release Titanfall without a single-player campaign? That's just not how things work. And it suggests some questions of, how does this game ultimately get released? Is it just purely a digital title? Or Evan also thought of something. His reaction earlier I thought was kind of interesting. It could potentially be a free-to-play game with microtransactions, where maybe you purchase maps or you purchase characters or ink colors or who knows what. There's a lot of different ways that game could go, but one thing's for sure, there's so much potential there. Now, as for Smash Brothers, that was my number 2. And I'm not picking a specific version, 3DS or Wii U, because both look really great. And that's kind of an interesting change of mind for me, because I really kind of don't want to buy the game twice. I don't think that I'm going to like the controls as much in 3DS, because it's just not a GameCube controller. It's not even a Wii U gamepad. And I'm just a little hesitant to get that invested in it. But all of these extra modes were shown in rapid fire succession during a trailer, with the explanation of, like, there's a lot more to show you of the game, but I can't really go into detail. So I'm just going to show you what I can. And there is an overworld map that reminded me a lot of a Soul Calibur 2 or 3 adventure mode, where you basically go from stage to stage and there's certain objectives, and I loved that in Soul Calibur, and I think it's a really great compromise of, if we have to remove Subspace Emissary, that we can have this, at least this manufactured map to go across to send our characters on an adventure that involves certain types of special fights. Really cool. And then I forgot about the punching bag competition, and there's all these coins coming up, and there's all these trophies being thrown out. And lo and behold, the NFC figures weren't even figuring into the 3DS version. I completely expected that as well. What I didn't expect, though, was a 3 or 4 months delay. Now the game's coming out in October. That said,
Yeah.
that means that if people want to get both games, all of a sudden it's not as easy to justify if you're on a limited budget of like, okay, I can buy the 3DS version of Smash in the summer, and come holiday when Smash on Wii U comes out, I'm going to have money saved up for that. It's going to make a little bit more tension, I think, for purchasing decisions for a lot of people out there. Did you have any gut reactions on that, Evan?
It was very curious. I mean, Sakurai basically said that they were still working and they need some more time, which could be the case. But Nintendo is known for having finishing games and kind of playing around with the release dates.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if they started thinking, if they once they announced it and they saw kind of the feedback at the Super Smash Brothers Direct that happened a month or two ago, and we're like, you know what? The 3DS game could really eat into the sales. And I'm curious, we still don't have the Wii U release date. They're saying holiday, which I'm guessing is mid-November. But will these end up coming out back to back? Because the one thing that you can say is, I think you make a good point. Does this keep people from buying both because they're so close together? Could they possibly come out at the same time in the end? But at the same time, for Nintendo, it definitely works with your marketing and everything else to be able to do it all at one time, to put all of your marketing muscle behind Super Smash Brothers for both versions. So it's going to be very intriguing to see how it all comes together. And I'm glad that you brought up the new modes, because there was also Kid Icarus Uprising is one of my favorites, and there was a nod to that title, and I think the difficulty selector and how you could like slide it up, it looks like from 1 to 9, which it started in Icarus Uprising, and obviously is going to play into probably some of the single player and possibly multiplayer versions with bots. So I'm like, I'm still Wii U, I think, all the way, like most people probably are, but the 3DS version could be just cool enough with all these single player segments to hook me. Nintendo could get me with both, which they're so good about that.
That's so true, and in spite of being resistant to that concept, it seems like there's just enough content in both games that I feel like I want to get both. Now, whether I get them when they come out or if I actually space them out on my own remains to be seen. And even Wii U, we didn't get a lot more information on the Wii U version. I think it's because they're saving a lot of that for later Nintendo Directs, maybe another Smash Direct or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But I was really impressed with the integration of Mii's, and I never thought that I would say that, because usually I think of Mii's as kind of derpy, kind of disappointing, and just underwhelming. But there was so much complexity and depth actually put into the Mii, and then reminding people that you can design a Mii to look like any character, fictional, historical, celebrity, or otherwise, really adds a lot of variety in that you can make them a ranged person or you can make them a brawler. It was a really good job and one of the best uses of Mii's. And I loved how Sakurai acknowledged that he considered putting Mii's into Smash Brothers Brawl, and they show these clips of Mii's doing really cutesy things and just being very unsmash-like, and him kind of implicitly saying that they really didn't belong in Smash Brothers because they're just too cutesy and cuddly and not serious enough. But he's gone and made them something really cool, and I so much appreciate that, and that makes me even more excited. And I think that's going to be in Wii U and 3DS, but still, it was a great show for that. Evan?
It's just crazy how much there is to this. It's crazy how much Sakurai just packs into his games. And once again, I'm so glad that you pointed out the Mii Fighters, because, yeah, all of this information, it's been 8 hours since we watched the show, so just trying to kind of process and digest all this information. But he made them look like fighters, but not menacing. It's just he does such a great job with detail. It looks fantastic.
For my third game in my top 5, I had Zelda in there, and I have a difficult relationship with consoles because I have a really hard time getting through them. Handheld Zeldas, no problem. I love those. I don't know what it is, but I totally get through handheld Zeldas. I always love them. Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, they each had their challenges for me that it was difficult for me to get through them. But oh my goodness, Nintendo has done it again and made me very excited, as they had before with Twilight Princess and with Skyward Sword, just with the 1-minute video and just the concept that we can have a 3D Zelda that is truly open world. You can tackle it in whatever order you want, just like the old Zeldas of years past, and also like the most recent Link Between Worlds, is really thrilling. And to see that beautiful landscape, that vista, with such gorgeous lighting and such dynamically modeled landscapes, it's just like it was really thrilling. And then to finally see Link, I almost thought they're not gonna show us Link, and just to see Link's design, and yet again, it's different. It's not exactly like Skyward Sword. It's not exactly like Wind Waker or anything we've seen before, but it was really cool. And my immediate reaction was like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" And when the giant robot spider is chasing Link, and it's shooting these laser bombs, which I really don't know why that's in there, but I'm sure it's going to make sense in the end. But just the explosions, the brightness of the fire, and the flames leaping up around Link as he's trying to run away on his horse was just really striking, and it's just cinematic and exciting, and everything that I would want in a 1-minute Zelda teaser. And it was so exciting. The funny thing that really struck me is that while I had no questions or hans about the appearance of Link, there were a lot of people out there like, I think that Link looks feminine. Is Link actually a girl? Is this actually Zelda posing as Link? And I think it's just because the shape of the chin was a little bit more, it was a little softer and a little bit more feminine from an anime design perspective.
He looks more acrobatic as well.
Yeah, yeah, and if this ends up being Zelda as Link, or it is you can pick a gender for Link, all the better. That's even more exciting. I think that's really cool. Either way, whatever gender this character happens to be, I don't really care. I think it looks great as compared to, remember that other game that we were talking about a while ago that you were comparing to Mighty Number 9 that's also coming from Capcom? Do you remember that, Evan?
Oh, Gunstar, Azure Gunfall. I can never remember, but it's
Yeah,
the 3DS
Azure
game.
Gunstriker Gunfighter.
Yes.
Now that one, I swear I thought that was a girl. Had long braided hair, had like this midriff bearing, svelte little waist. I'm like, that's a girl. Like, no, it's a guy. And I'm like, what? And maybe that's just my American sensibilities coming in. I couldn't get my head around it. That made me do a double take. With this Link, I'm totally sold. I think Link looks great, regardless of what the gender is, and the game itself, the design structure sounds like it's definitely on the right path to be a really refreshing experience. Knowing that I don't have to swing around a remote, hopefully, is also a big relief. And having open world is great.
I mean, Anoma talked about how the gamepad works so well with Wind Waker, and that's a quasi-open world, you can say, even though like islands are blocked off and everything. And I think with this being an open world, the gamepad's going to be huge for the map and exploring and going anywhere you go. And there's just saying that the open world, it just opens up so many possibilities. I mean, is stuff procedurally happen? Can that type of monster show up anywhere in the world? Do you always have to be kind of on guard when you're in this world? Stuff like that. I mean, we have no idea. And one thing that wasn't mentioned that he's talked about before is multiplayer in a Zelda game. I mean, is this an open world game? Are there multiple, like I saw someone just speculate, are there multiple links in this world? Are there ways to kind of play in another person's multiplayer match? Can it be an online connected world? What they could do with that? And even if there is no multiplayer, just open world has me sold. And like you said, the vista where he said, you see that mountain, you can go to that mountain. I feel like that's something that a lot of people, including myself, have been like, that's what I want from a Zelda game. Just this unbridled sense of freedom.
Yeah.
And it looks like we're getting it. And I'm just so giddy about it. I can't wait.
Yeah, I remember when you were IMing me and you're like, yes, yes. I could totally, that was all I needed to know, that you were very excited about it. And me too, just the possibilities. I'm guessing that there's going to be, like, maybe if you do this dungeon first, that's going to change that whole landscape, because he mentioned about how you basically had a hub world with discrete little areas for certain dungeons, and because of that, you could only go to certain ones at a certain time. But he also mentioned that you couldn't actually interact with those elements through the invisible boundary that define them, and that to me suggests potentially landscape changing, or maybe seasons change, or maybe a frosty area becomes vibrant and sunny. There's just so many potential things, and it looks like it's really off to a great start. I am skeptical, like Evan, that this is coming out in 2015, but Nintendo seems to be aggressive and a little bit more desperate than normal, so who knows? Anything could happen at this point. But I am not going to hold my breath because I want them to take their time and make this really great. And I was going into this E3, I was kind of skeptical. I was like, Wii U has so many challenges on it. Is it really ever going to turn around? Is it ever going to be a huge system that lots and lots of people get to experience these amazing games. I mean, looking at it beyond my own selfish desires, I was just like, I want tons of people to play Nintendo's games, and that means I want Nintendo to have a really successful machine. And is it too late for Wii U to turn around? Even if we have a Zelda game next year or the year after that, how big is this going to be? And will such a fantastic game not get played by a lot of people because the system never reached mass acceptance? And that was really what was kind of driving my thought. It was just like, I know you want to do a Zelda, but just put it off to the next system where you can really just start afresh and make it really big and splashy so that as many people as possible can get it. Now that I've seen it, all my selfish impulses have taken over, and it's just like,
I want it.
How many people get to play this? I want to play it myself. And I'm going to be selfish about it, and now I'm genuinely excited to see and learn more about this Zelda game and see where it's going to take us, because I was excited about Twilight Princess. I was even more excited about Skyward Sword, this whole origin story, this area in the sky. But this, with so much less information, I think has gotten me even more excited than those last two console games. So for me, selfishly, it's a big win. My fourth title in my top 5 is actually the Yoshi game, which is now called Yoshi's Woolly World. That's 2 O's and 2 L's. Apparently, I did not spell that correctly when I first learned about that. And as Evan knows, and as mentioned many times on many podcasts in the past, I am a big fan of Kirby's Epic Yarn, so I was kind of predestined to be excited about this game. And I'm excited about it even more because it looks even better than Kirby's Epic Yarn. It looks to have even deeper gameplay. It looks to have better two-player mechanics. It looks to have more challenging elements, more variety in the experience. I'm not the world's biggest Yoshi fan, and I was not the biggest Kirby fan when Epic Yarn came out. I was excited about that game more from an aesthetic and an artistic design perspective. And once again, I'm just entranced with this tactile materials approach with Yoshi's games, whether it's with paper and markers, as we've seen in older Yoshi's games and even from the one that just came out, or this yarn approach. And it just looks great. And the thing that it reminds me of right off the bat is Little Big Planet. You see a lot of similarities in Yoshi's model design and the enemy designs with Little Big Planet's Sock Boy. And those Little Big Planet has incredible visual design, really creative aesthetic, and the characters are just so adorable. And Nintendo has taken that and done that with Yoshi. However, I think the biggest difference, as much as I am entranced and I love Little Big Planet's aesthetics, I love the creativity, I love the charm and the spirit of that developer's work. Media Molecule is a fantastic developer. My experiences gameplay-wise with Little Big Planet have been mediocre. The platforming just does not compare or measure up to, for me, with Nintendo. It can be flaky, it can be frustrating, the controls are jumpy. So when I see something that's as cute and as endearing as Little Big Planet, but it's a Nintendo franchise, maybe it isn't as wildly esoteric and weird mashups of things as Little Big Planet's levels do, but I know that Yoshi's Woolly World is going to have really tight controls because you can always count on that with a Nintendo first-party game. So to me, that's like the perfect storm, and that's why I'm so excited about Yoshi's Woolly World, although I really didn't expect this, among many other titles, to be a 2015 title. I thought it was a lock for 2014. But overall, it still looks so fantastic, and that's why I put it in my top 5.
We're both disappointed about our respective games. I think we both feel like, no, X will be this year. Yoshi will be next year. We're like, no, Yoshi will be this. And I really thought Yoshi was going to be the October game, kind of what kept our September, where Kirby's Epic Yarn came out in 2010, I believe. Yep, it's an unfortunate kind of thread that runs throughout these games we're going to talk about, except for your next one that wasn't on my list. But there was a pleasant surprise with that as well.
Yeah, I put as my number 5 Bayonetta 1 and 2 because we're getting both games on the same disc. I'm so excited about that. It's something that I think Evan might have mentioned to me in passing. I'm not sure if we talked about it in the show, that it would be really great if Nintendo fans who didn't get a chance to play Bayonetta 1, if they could actually see the first game. It is campy, it's kind of trashy, it's kind of slutty, frankly, but it is really fun. I mean, if you're old enough for it, I definitely think it's a completely demographic from Yoshi's Woolly World and even Zelda. But it's just great, beautiful, really out there. At times even kind of sacrilegious. It's definitely not for everybody, but it is right up my alley, this B-movie, schlocky stuff. really well done, great controls, very creative. We're getting both, and because Nintendo, I guess, partnered up to make sure that this game happened, there's all these extra goofy costumes that Bayonetta can adopt. She has a Samus suit, she has a Zelda suit, and I was just completely delighted, and that they saved the reveal that after all those cool little Nintendo tweaks or perks or bonuses are included with Bayonetta 2, that you're getting both games, 1 and 2. That was just icing on the cake, and I'm always going to be a fan of, and a proponent of this game. I feel like it's kind of a dark horse. I don't think necessarily it's a system seller, but it makes me really proud and excited to be a Wii U owner, and especially as a Wii U owner who's been around for a long time, to have this kind of a game to look forward to, in addition to all these gems that are coming from Nintendo's first parties. It's just perfect, and it's something that I'm really looking forward to. It's not an unknown quantity like Wonderful 101. I was really excited about that game as well, and it has its positive points and also it has its negative points. I know what I'm getting with Bayonetta based on my experience with the first game, and it makes me all the more delighted that this game is an exclusive and something to really look forward to this fall. Are you going to be getting Bayonetta? I'm curious, Evan. Is it something that's in your wheelhouse, or is it kind of outside?
It definitely, with it coming with 1, it's definitely intrigued me more. I thought Bayonetta 2 looks good, but the idea that I can play the first one and kind of experience, I don't know how much of the storyline, but just that I can like explore both games is really exciting for me. So I don't know if I'll get it right at launch, but I'll definitely probably be picking it up because it's one of obviously Nintendo's big 2014 games for Wii U. But the next game is also a 2014 title that I didn't mention. I was surprised it wasn't on your top 5 games because it's someone who is right behind you, and it makes sense now why Luigi and Mario are kind of glaring at him, kind of angry with him.
So who would have thought that my current favorite character in the Mario franchise, Toad, who I've had so many excellent adventures with in Super Mario 3D World, would be getting his own full retail release game this year, no less. I was really shocked about it, and since I've been such a Toad evangelist in recent episodes on NF Show, I'm going to go put him back in his spot. Right there. Because it's too distracting to gesticulate with a doll in your hand. But it really came out of nowhere. The first thing I thought, and it's kind of one of the reasons why this is an honorable mention in my list, because this is technically number 6, and I kind of cheated, but I had to put Toad in there, but I couldn't put him in the top 5 because the first
That's Captain Toad to you.
Yes, Captain Toad, sorry. The first thing I thought is this is DLC for Mario 3D World. I wasn't expecting that. What a pleasant surprise. It's like, no, it's actually a full game. And then later in the day, here's the retail box art. It's like, what? This isn't even a digital title? Because I thought, okay, first it's DLC, and then I thought, okay, well, this is probably a $20 digital game. And then I see a box for this. We don't even get Phoenix Wright games in boxes anymore. And there's a lot of really great indie titles and out there things like Dylan's Rolling World, Dylan's Rolling Western, or Pushmo World. These games probably will never see a box in their lifetime, these franchises. And as a little side mode in Super Mario 3D World, which is incidentally reusing a lot of art and a lot of music from that game, is getting a full retail release this holiday. I'm kind of surprised, I'm kind of dumbfounded, but I'm also really looking forward to it because I loved those levels in Mario 3D World, and I think it's very savvy and a great way to crank something out that is delightful, unexpected, and exciting for Mario fans out there. This is the only touch of Mario that we really got out of everything, which is kind of also a breath of fresh air after the last few years. But it's cool. I'm definitely getting it. I don't know how deep the game's going to be. I'm sure that it's going to feel satisfying, but I'm not sure if it's something that I want to play in long stints or if it's going to be a bite-sized game. Is it going to be deep enough to justify a retail release? Is this going to be treated like New Super Luigi U, where, for instance, maybe it's $30 for the boxed game and it's $20 for the digital version, and I really don't know what to expect, but it looks really great, and I never ever thought I would see Toad getting his own retail game. That's like Koopa Troopa or like Dry Bones or somebody getting a game. I mean, Bowser I can understand headlining a game. Even Peach got a game. It took forever, and I'm glad that she got a game. But even that seemed like a long shot. But Toad seemed like the longest shot of all. And I'm not sure if that means we're going to see like a Lakitu game next or what. But onward and upward, Toad. Even though you can't jump on your stubby little legs, I'm really excited to play your game. And I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about it because I'm still a little skeptical about it, but I'm definitely sold on it no matter what. Those are our top 5 games.
Toad's a true underdog story. I mean, he wasn't even in the new Super Mario Brothers side-scroller games. They replaced him with some blue and yellow
like
top.
Off-brand Toad. It was like generic Toad was in those. It was sad.
How far he's come in so long.
Yeah.
Oh, good for Toad.
So talking about all the other games. Now, I wrote up this convoluted set of notes for Evan and I earlier today in a bit of a frenzy because there were so many games, and that's one of the things that I was really delighted about. But I thought a really good way to tackle these was to address one of the underlying realities. It's a thread that you keep hearing repeated throughout our commentary here, and regardless of our delight, is what games are actually coming out this year, especially for Wii U, because we have seen some really long stretches in between Wii U games. And when you have Ubisoft going out there saying, oh yeah, we've got like 1 or 2 Wii U games, we're just waiting to see the system sell more before it comes out, and knowing that the third-party support really isn't out there, the indie support is out there, apparently in spades, which I will get onto that later, but third parties aren't out there. We're really reliant on Wii U, at least, for content to come from Nintendo's first and second parties. And unfortunately, while there are some games that Evan and I both are really looking forward to, there's still, aside from Captain Toad, not a lot of new stuff coming out there. And so we're going to look at the games based on when they're coming out. First of all, we'll talk about 2014, and then we'll talk about 2015, and then I kind of put on my skeptical hat, and I even pushed some stuff into 2015 and beyond, like 2016. So if you're paying attention to what we said earlier, you might be able to guess where some of those are. Well, let's start out looking at what's confirmed for 2014. We finally got to see the NFC figures, which Nintendo just casually threw out. This is called Amiibo, not capitalized, A-M-I-I-B-O.
I like it.
I thought it was cool. It made me think of Amigo in Spanish language. It has a play off of Mii's, even though Mii's aren't prominently featured yet. Maybe there will be some kind of program where you can pay to get a custom Amiibo built of your Mii. I mean, that would be pretty awesome. But
it plays off Pokemon Ami as well, which they apparently love the word Ami, since that was used last year in Pokemon and now for Amiibo, which is a play off.
That's a great point. Something else that kind of surprised me is I was completely expecting a Skylanders or Disney Infinity-esque game that was going to be announced alongside this. But instead, Nintendo is being a little bit more conservative, or perhaps you could say strategic, with the launch of the system. It's basically this Amiibo system is what I mean, the NFC figures. They're not launching until Smash Brothers comes out for Wii U, and that's apparently going to be the first title to really harness it. However, simultaneously, while the figures aren't coming out, or the first set of figures, because that was mentioned, set 1 of Amiibos, they will retroactively work in some way with Mario Kart 8. So that's
DLC.
Cool. Yeah, there was somebody who immediately was just leaping all over that on Twitter saying, I refuse to buy toys as DLC. These are just DLC in disguise. I'm not going to get into your scheme. And it's kind of harsh, but it was a valid viewpoint. That's kind of what these are. They're currently glorified memory cards that also house DLC. And frankly, that's kind of how the toy figure thing is all around. If you want to play certain levels in Skylanders, or if you want to play in certain worlds, or shoot, if you even want to play multiplayer in Disney's Infinity, you need multiples of these figures. And the game could totally come out without attaching some extra transaction attached to it. But that's the scheme, and it's going really well, and Nintendo's finally jumping on board. Say what you will about that, at least the figures look really nice. And the highlight for Amiibos in the presentation today was talking about how you can purchase the Mario Amiibo or the Link Amiibo and level up a character and save that to your Amiibo. And you basically can create your own CPU character that levels up, has certain move sets, you can custom tailor how it's going to work, and you can even pop Amiibos in through your gamepad, scan them in, and they fight each other. You're not even participating, you're just passively watching this trained Amiibo that you've programmed and put through practices fight other people. Perhaps they can fight your real life friend who's really good at beating you, but your Amiibo is really good. Or you can even fight your own Amiibo. It was really weird. It kind of makes me think of Terminator, where you have these pseudo sentient or sapient robots that are programmed but kind of take a life of their own, and you can combat them or send them off to battle. What was your take on this? Was it a big selling point for you, Evan? Were you impressed with the integration?
I'll be honest, I'm glad you explained it. I've read about it, and I think this may be a problem with Nintendo. Like you said, they're using it with Smash as basically a complementary feature, it appears, and not as something like, here's your character, it pops up. Because I was kind of like, why do you need that character to put in a CPU version of Mario? You can already do that in a Smash. But it's not like the Skylanders, where there's the instant connection of, like, to play this character, you place them on a portal or whatever. So I'm curious. I've been kind of confused with that, how it works with Smash, and I think that could possibly be a problem. You also have, apparently Smash doesn't need it. So you've got Nintendo characters in these figurines, which you think is easily knock it out of the park. But I wonder if this is once again going to be kind of a marketing problem by not having a title built around it. Even a downloadable game and some functionality where it works right off the bat like you would expect it to. Now, I think if it comes out working for Smash, and it's like, if you buy one of these characters, you get new battle arenas or a new set of Mario characters or Zelda's in Mario Kart 8, that would make more sense, kind of way to comprehend what's going on there. But I think that'll be the struggle. I'm also curious to see, how big they look pretty small in comparison to Disney Infinity characters and stuff, and that may have to do with just working with the gamepad's NFC and everything. But they do look pretty cool. And as much as I've been I'm pretty against the idea of buying these figures, I'm glad that they're not necessarily required for Smash, and maybe I will end up wanting a version of Link or Samus in a little figurine form that I can use here and there for stuff. So it piques my interest. I guess I'm glad that it's not. It looks more as an added bonus, and it's not something that's crucial to any experience right now. But that may not be beneficial for Nintendo. I'm curious to see how it all play out, but I'm guessing it's going to have a huge push along with Super Smash Brothers. And I'm just glad that there's more than just one or two figurines. I think I predicted we'd only see a couple. I was pretty cynical there. But Nintendo had a great set of 10, even though one of them was actually the Wii Fit trainer, which I found very bizarre. You're on mute. No, we can't hear you. I think you may be on mute. Sorry.
Oh, thank you for catching me. I was making sure that you didn't have to hear me make any rude noises in the background. So I think it also says a lot.
Sorry for the delay. I
Yeah.
was trying to mouth it to you, by the way. So for anyone watching live, that's why there's the pause.
Yeah, we try to focus on the camera when we're talking. Sometimes that means not paying attention to whatever somebody else is doing in the corner. So my apologies. But I think it says it's really interesting, the characters that they chose, because are those characters chosen because they think they'll sell the most, or are those the characters, according to their data, that get played the most? We have the Animal Crossing villager and the Wii Fit trainer. Those are the newcomers. But then we have Mario and Peach and Link and Donkey Kong and Kirby and Yoshi. No, I wonder how it's going to expand it. Oh, and Marth was in there. Are they going to actually produce figures for every single character? Because it'd be kind of a bummer if, let's say, my favorite character doesn't have a figure and I can't then do this whole level up concept. I think that maybe Nintendo's setting itself up for making all of them, but who knows? It's going to be really interesting to see, and it's kind of strange that the 3DS will require an additional dongle or little pad to harness this functionality. And we still don't know if Smash on 3DS is going to use these or not. I would hope so.
Yeah.
Still a mystery, but we'll find out in the future. Running down other games that were announced for 2014. So, of course, We know Smash Brothers is coming out now, very close together, the 3DS and the Wii U version. I'm really intrigued to see if they actually keep those titles. The titles are so hokey. For 3DS, for Wii U. I mean, is there really any confusion? Don't you have any great marketers in there to come up with another adjective for a fight? Or could you use a Pokemon type of title like Fire Red or Sapphire Blue, whatever? I think there's some potential. Maybe that's going to change. That's what some people told me on Twitter. But we'll see what happens there. We have Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, Hyrule Warriors, which got a bit of time for me. I'm not a Dynasty Warriors fan, and as hard as they tried to sell me on the concept of like, oh, there's so much Zelda that's put into here, but we were told that we could really do whatever we want, which in my head translates as, we're going to take Dynasty Warriors and basically cut and paste the Zelda characters into it. And it's probably not that crude. I'm so judgmental saying that, but it's just I've never been a fan, and it just looks very monotonous and very repetitive. I'm really looking forward to. I'm counting on the listeners and the watchers of the show to tell me of how awesome the game is. Are you excited checking this out, Evan?
Yeah, now they've only talked about local co-op, and a friend of the show, I think it's Brian Cashman, is at E3, and he was like, he saw my tweet about, is there not going to be online co-op? There's always online co-op on Dynasty Warrior games, and I think Warriors Ariocho, I'm probably mispronouncing that. I think someone even pointed out that there was a Wii U Warriors game that had online co-op, and Nintendo's only talking about local co-op, and I guess he asked and someone said we're only talking about local co-op, so fingers crossed online co-op so Noah and I can get our Zelda slashing on and Hyrule Warriors. But I'm intrigued. I think it looks pretty good. They showed some crazy stuff on the Treehouse live stream. I think at one point you used the Great Fairy from Nintendo 64 to bring down the moon from Majora's Mask to like knock a dragon out of the sky. So it's just like these crazy antics, and just with Nintendo kind of having a guiding hand, I think it could be a really cool action game, something totally different from Nintendo's. And let's be honest here, the announcement that not only do you get to control Zelda, not only do you get to control Impa, but also Midna, having those three characters as playable characters is really cool. So I'm intrigued. Online co-op, though, for me is a must, and I may, in protest if it's not there, not end up getting it. So we'll see. I'm glad to see it's coming. I was hoping it'd come a little earlier, but that's September 26th.
Coming up after that would be, of course, Bayonetta 1 and 2, as we talked about, and not featured or really highlighted in the media event. We also, of course, have Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, and Watch Dogs, which just, I don't know, I guess they just kind of said, oh yeah, Ubisoft, you're going to talk about games, we're just not going to promote yours. It was kind of weird, but they're definitely third-party titles that we could look forward to, could be really exciting, and are actually coming out this year. And
I guess the one title that's kind of the rogue or the oddball out there that was announced after the presser is Devil's Third, Itagi's game, who's famous for the Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 on Xbox and everything. That's exclusive to Wii U all of a sudden. And is that a 2014 game? It was announced years ago, and I think they've talked about it being 2014. So that could be another game. Will Nintendo have two crazy action games all within months of each other? So it'd be interesting to see that.
I am surprisingly really excited for Devil's Third after I saw the trailer today. And after I saw the trailer, I'm like, oh, I can see why this wasn't included in the digital media event, because it was, you name it, whatever you would think an R-rated movie should have or why a movie would be rated R, it was in there. I was like, wow, lingerie and extreme violence and blood and gore and swear words, and it's like, no wonder YouTube made me sign in to watch this trailer. And it's so great. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I cringe at these things, but it was after seeing like Yoshi's Woolly World to see something like this, like, whoa. It's like it's a stark contrast, but it also speaks to me as something that looks really exciting and not something that I expect on Wii U. Another game like Bayonetta that I'm stoked is going to be on Wii U.
And just the Itagaki, for those who know him, just this kind of really funny, oddball,
eccentric, yeah,
very eccentric,
and outspoken.
That Iwata, I guess he went to Nintendo and they signed on for this. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be an Xbox or PS4 exclusive game at this point, and apparently it's coming to Wii U. So it's just fascinating. I'm really curious to learn more.
Now, as for the rest of 2014, we do have some third-party titles. They're just not huge ones. And we also have Art Academy coming from Nintendo, which could be kind of cool on the gamepad with a much larger canvas to work with than on DS or 3DS. And then on the third-party side, we have Skylanders Trap Team, Just Dance 2014, One Piece Unlimited World Red, Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures 2. I'm really surprised there's a sequel to that game. 3. I didn't even know there was a 2. And Disney Infinity 2.0. All games that are good for family-friendly for the younger set. Nothing that's going to be on my wish list, unfortunately, but it's good to see that there's something out there. I just wish there were a little more.
Third party is pretty much non-existent. Nintendo did throw out the exclusive word there and apparently has some Skylanders and Disney Infinity exclusive content, and I wouldn't be surprised to see another Skylanders Wii U bundle, which I think is very smart of Nintendo to continue to do that. But it's basically coming down to indie games and Nintendo's first-party content for Wii U. And it's almost like that for 3DS, to be honest, too.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Let's talk about the 3DS games that were highlighted. The only 2 games, 3 if you want to be technical, that were highlighted in the digital media event were Smash Brothers for 3DS, and then a very brief, but for people who love it, satisfying Pokemon trailer, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Sapphire. Was also Monster Hunter in there? I don't know. But on top of that, there's actually some games that I'm really excited about. Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright. I know that it's not supposed to be the best game. I've seen plenty of comments and reviews stating that, but I love both of those franchises, and I don't care. I'm going to buy it. All right. So I'm really excited that is finally confirmed from North America. Fantasy Life, I think, also has a lot of potential. I love almost anything that Level 5 does. I'm really excited to see how that RPG turns out because I could always use a nice classic JRPG out there, and I love Level 5's quirkiness and personality that they put into their experiences. And what it made me think of immediately, tying back to Professor Layton, was London Life, which was a really wonderful little side RPG that was included with, I think, 2 Professor Layton games ago.
Yeah. I think it was the last DS game. It was the last Spectre, maybe?
Yeah, I think you're right. And we got lucky because it was unlocked from the get-go versus something that you had to unlock for when it was released in other territories. So I'm sure Fantasy Life is much deeper and more intricate than London Life, but I'm sure it's going to be quite as satisfying. Another fanboy title for me, Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call. Yay, something from Square Enix. It wasn't Bravely Default the second, but we definitely are getting Theater Rhythm. There's also the 3DS version of Sonic Boom. We have Persona Q. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, Evan, is that actually 2015?
Early 2015.
Oh, I made a mistake in my notes. I'm sorry about that. We also have Yu-Gi-Oh! Dexal. We have Pokemon Art Academy, which I might pick up. I would love to be able to draw Pokemon creatures. I think they have excellent designs. And Ace Attorney Trilogy. Now, I am a huge Ace Attorney fan. I love all those games. I've purchased them all at least once, but I'm wondering how many times are those 3 games going to be re-released? Because we have a high-res version, I think, coming to Wii U, and we have another version, a trilogy compilation coming to 3DS, which is great. I encourage anybody who has not played Ace Attorney to definitely play these games.
That's me.
Get support for some sequels. I love them. They have a lot of comedy. They have dark elements to them. They're not as quirky as you would think, but they're also goofy. It's a really great mix of mature and goofy stuff, and if you love animes and stuff like that, it's also something that you would like. Highly recommended, but I'm kind of sick of seeing these retreads. It'd be like Nintendo releasing Super Mario All-Stars every year. It's like, oh, it's on 3DS, now it's on DS, now it's on Wii U, and it's just like, all right, enough, let's see some fresh stuff.
It's surprising. I'm glad you brought up that point. First off, I probably will get Ace Attorney Trilogy because you've talked about it being so good, and now I can pick up all 3 of the original games and go through them in one. It's an eShop only title, I think, that's going to retail for $30 here in North America. But there were HD repackagings. A lot of people thought there might be Mario Galaxy HD repackaging, or we might see another game. And who knows, maybe that'll be another title to kind of fill out 2014 for Wii U, but we haven't seen it yet.
That's a really good point, Evan. I would want to remind everybody out there who potentially is concerned, including ourselves, that the year's not over, and Nintendo doesn't necessarily have to show everything that they have at E3. There is always a possibility there's going to be some surprise Nintendo Direct between now and September. It's like, oh, guess what? we have this game that we're going to only market for a month. And guess what? You didn't know it was coming, but here it is. Nintendo has done it in the past. They did it with Excitebots. I can remember they did it with Bug Island or Escape from Bug Island. They've done it with a number of
Tetris
games.
DS.
Tetris DS, which is one of my all-time favorite games. There is
Star
potential
Fox
for more.
for DS. Yeah, I mean, and they may do it at E3. I mean, I think Reggie's kind of alluded to it, and we're talking about it. We're recording Tuesday, like we said, just 8-9 hours after the digital media event. I'm guessing Wednesday or Thursday we're going to get more 3DS news, and it's going to get its own spotlight. Not only the Treehouse, but they have a mystery 3DS game. Is that Metroid? Is that another new Miyamoto project?
That's right.
I don't know. Maybe if it's something big, maybe Noah and I will have to find up and rig up some special NF show to just. If it's Metroid, I feel like we're both such big fans. We'll have to do something and just drool over whatever we learn.
Oh my gosh, you're so right.
I wouldn't be surprised if we learn more. So we're just discussing about what we know right now. It could be a Devil's Third was just thrown out there. Nintendo does crazy things when it comes to E3, so which is fun. It's exciting. We have no idea what could be coming.
Yeah, I have a good friend who I have been friends with from long, long ago, from Nintendo days for years and years and years. And he's sarcastic and he likes to make jokes. And his first comment to me this morning was, "Ready for Nintendo's next disappointment." I laughed because it was so sarcastic and so angry and so justified. I understand what that feels like. I have watched E3 press conferences for Nintendo and many other companies, and at the end of it, I'm like, that's it. And this has not been one of those years. I have been really happy with what we've seen. But that said, there was a lot of things that while I was excited about it, no matter how much excitement I have for it, they were all announced for 2015, and some of these things just dumbfound me. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles X, I've repeatedly told Evan did not come out this year, and I was vindicated when it's like,
I believe.
Yeah, 2000. You know, and I love that. I love that about you, Evan, that you have that heart and that optimism in you. That's like, it's going to come out. It's got to come out. It's not coming out. But it's coming out next year, and I think it can come out next year. I feel pretty good about that. That was my prediction. And it didn't surprise me. Splatoon looks so cool, but we've only seen a little part of it. I really want that game this year. I want it now. I wanted it as a launch title for Wii U. That could have been a game changer for Wii U's launch. I really feel that. Whatever, bygones, this is how it's worked out. It's not coming out until 2015. The one positive side to that, as much as I wanted, is it could have so much more added to it between now and then, which may make it even better.
And you know what? If it ultimately was a free-to-play game, which I'm guessing it's not going to be at this point, I think there's been retail pre-orders popping up for it. But we talked about early access and stuff with Nintendo and betas. What if it was a free-to-play and it was like, this is available right now. We're going to have you guys help us craft this game. Like, just something to show Nintendo, like, not only tackling online in a different way, but just attacking game development. I'm still excited. I'm not trying to poop. I mean, we've talked about it probably more than anything except for Zelda. But just that would have been really cool. That's not the case, but I can dream. I can dream.
And as it turns out, speaking of other titles that we weren't sure when it's going to come out, Devil's Third doesn't have a release date. My guess was 2015, so I put it in the notes under 2015. It actually could come out this year. If it's been in development under THQ for this long and it originally had a 360 version and a PS3 version scheduled, it could come out this year, but I wouldn't be surprised just for the sake of having a nice release schedule if it's pushed out into 2015 first half, which apparently is also when Yoshi's Woolly World is scheduled for. It's like, why is this so far out? I want that game now. I totally thought, much like Evan did with Xenoblade, I totally thought that Yoshi was going to be a fall title this year, but nope. Though it looks very done, very ready, it's not coming out until the first half of 2015, which I think is probably more of a strategic move by Nintendo versus a development time need, because whether or not this game is more complex than Kirby's Epic Yarn, it's not that much more complex, and I feel like Goodfeel is very talented and skilled, and they could have had this game out this year. Whatever, it's out next year. As well as Mario Maker, which also seems to be very finely tuned. It has this great 8-bit version editor that can then be up-resed into new Super Mario Bros.-esque graphics once you've created your levels. It's on Wii U, which I expected because, shoot, if the 3DS can't handle NES Remix, how on earth could it handle Mario Maker? That's been my assumption from the start. I'm glad it's on Wii U, but why is it next year? Again, it feels like another strategic scheduling versus something that could be really cool and impressive this year. And
that's
Mario 10, another one. But Mario, you're going to say, Evan?
Mario Maker could be a really big one. That's another one that first it's got the Mario name, so anything with Mario could be big. But just this, finally we can make our Mario levels. I'm guessing you'll be able to share them on Miiverse. How else can you share them? What kind of functionality can you make overworlds? Will Nintendo have somewhat of a little mini campaign of these interesting levels?
Cool.
How big? I mean, they're showing very small scale levels that you can make. You would hope that they blow this out for the final release. Mario Maker could be a really huge title, and I'm excited to see what they do with that. But yeah, Mario Party 10, it's kind of surprising. That's a pretty big franchise for them. I feel like usually a million copy seller. Mario Party 10 announced, but that's another game you would think would be October release, the kind of following up on Wii Party U last year, but that's 2015 as well.
And then a surprise out of nowhere. I never thought a Kirby DS title, Kirby's Canvas Curse, would get revisited in the sequel, but yes, we are getting a claymation. So Kirby's moved on from yarn now into clay, but we're getting a claymation Kirby game, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse for Wii U, also 2015, and even a Mario vs. Donkey Kong game, which it looks exactly like the 3DS games. I don't see anything new happening there. Also 2015. Surely that's a digital title. I don't get it.
That was shown, and what's interesting is we don't know if it's built off this, but Nintendo showed a Mario vs. Donkey Kong at GDC a few months ago that was built off the Nintendo Web Framework, which is like HTML, and trying to get indie developers to join on. And we've seen a couple of those games on the eShop from indies. I think Block Drop U is the first one that used Nintendo Web Framework. But yeah, another 2015. So for those keeping track, Nintendo has, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, around 8 or 9 first-party titles, and a couple of them are eShop for next year, compared to we have seen 2 first-party, and if you want to throw in NES Remix too, we have seen 3 first-party games in the first half of 2014, and it looks like we may only see 4 more games with Hyrule Warriors, Bayonetta 2, Smash Brothers, which is also a 3DS game, and finally Captain Toad. So that it's the warts whenever you're watching the presentation, which was really good, but it's the warts that you see pop up when you start examining things that Noah and I talked about. It just, last year was sparse with first party content on Wii U, and I think we're finally gravitas of how much they're behind with Wii U development. This wasn't their 1 year behind. This, I think we're seeing how far behind, and whether that's they had to put direct development resources toward the 3DS or HD development was so hard, or just a combination. But I feel like they're super behind, and it looks like 2015, hopefully, I mean, you're talking about the first half of the year. Hopefully we see Yoshi in like the February slot that we saw Donkey Kong Country, but it is frustrating, all these great games, but we're going to have to wait so much longer. That's a theme for Wii U, I feel like, since its launch. Because I had it on launch day, and I was like, oh no, a Wonderful 101 will be a launch window. Bayonetta 2 could come out within the first year of it releasing, and all these titles that they showed before the Wii U even launched. And it's just been, they've come out slowly, for sure.
We're coming up on an hour and a half for this show, and I have some unfortunate news for Evan and the rest of you. Because of my injury, it's very difficult for me to set up my computer where I need to, and also actually plug in a power supply. I'm on a laptop, and my power supply is dwindling fast, so I'm going to have to start trucking through some of the notes, and we're going to have to save some for next week. I apologize for it, but I would hate for this show to suddenly cut out without some conclusion. So,
surprise!
Yeah. So we're going to go a little bit faster here. What I dumped into 2016, and I know Nintendo wants to say 2015, I put in Star Fox, Legend of Zelda, and Project Giant Robot and Project Guard, both of which I think could actually end up being some kind of Nintendo Land compilation, or actually be side modes to Star Fox. But Star Fox, there's nothing even to see. There's no trailer. It's not going to show up at Treehouse, so put those hopes away. But I'm really excited. I've wanted a Star Fox game for so long, and so I'm delighted to hear it here. And the concepts that are being announced for it from a gameplay perspective, that you have this cockpit view in your gamepad, that you can turn into tank mode, that you can deploy a robot on the ground, all sounds really cool. I can't wait to see it. Miyamoto saying, I really want this game to come out next year, so I announced it prematurely. I respect that, but I think they're penchant for quality and being really happy with the work is going to push this out into 2016. And I think the same thing is true for Zelda. Evan?
There are a lot of mixed messages for Star Fox. I think at one point we've heard it's fully in development, and another part Miyamoto is quoted as saying they're looking for development partners, like they need a team to take it on. If it is 2015, we're talking November, December 2015, but I'm like you, I think it's going to be 2016. I am hopeful that Legend of Zelda is 2015. They said 2015. I'm guessing Nintendo is setting it up for their big holiday title next year, and I want to believe, so I'm going to continue to believe. But Zelda console games infamously delayed since Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask may have been the only one that has come out on time, but Wind Waker has been delayed. Twilight Princess infamously delayed. Skyward Sword delayed. So it's more likely that Legend of Zelda won't come out on time. Now, Project Giant Robot and Project Guard, yes, are these part of the Star Fox compilation? Is this a new Nintendo Land? Are these going to be eShop games that could just come out that are kind of weird and odd? If that's the case, I could see them coming out much earlier. But all of Miyamoto's stuff seems really far out, which is unusual because he's been talking about these secret projects
for years.
And these were very rough conceptual demos, I feel like, in a lot of ways. So, yeah, and you just know some of these games are going to fall to... I mean, that happens with every company. It's just not a Nintendo thing. Things happen in development. Problems pop up that are unforeseen. But I hope Zelda's 2000. I need it now. No, I can't wait.
I definitely feel your pain. I think next year is going to be so huge. There's going to be so many great games if they all actually come out when they're supposed to. So
I've fallen in that trap before. I thought 2014 was going to be the year. I was like, they have so much that has to come out, and it's been rough.
Yeah. You can't argue with Mario Kart and Smash Brothers in 1 year. That's pretty awesome.
Yes, that is really cool.
What's also really cool is the breadth of indie titles that are announced for eShop. There are so many of them. There's probably 30 of them that I'm looking at here, and I'm not going to go through them one by one or even highlights because of the burning battery conflict. But the one thing I have to say is release them. Nintendo, release these games. Shovel Knight should have come out months ago. Even the developer of Shovel Knight's like, oh my gosh, we finally have released it. You don't know how exciting that is. I really feel like there is something that just does not work well, and Nintendo's bureaucracy or its approval process or something. These games are really great. Some of them are available on multiple platforms, but the eShop would be even better if these games came out in a timely fashion. And what's good is we have a lot to look forward to, but I still don't know if Nintendo's going to release them in a reliable fashion.
I just hope they didn't give any coverage to these at their digital media event. It was a purely first-party affair. I hope over the next few days they highlight some of these titles that look really cool, like Swords and Soldiers 2, Stealth Incorporated 2, Star Wall, which is a cool multiplayer game.
There's even a title for No.
Yeah, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is coming to Wii U now as well as 3DS. Gunman Clive 2 was announced. I hope they make a big deal about that for 3DS. Citizens of Earth from Atlas, Armorillo, Affordable Space Adventures, 90s Arcade Racer, 6180 The Moon. There are a lot of cool titles that can help fill out this 2014 lineup, most importantly.
Now, there were a lot of great predictions last week from from our listeners and from us, and I really want to come back to that, but I'm going to save that for next week because I think we're definitely going to be talking about E3 for at least 1 or 2 weeks to come. If definitely at least 1 or 2 episodes to come. Maybe there will be early episodes, considering there's still stuff that could be revealed. We definitely have
Dragon Quest, please.
Yes.
Where's Dragon Quest 7? Where's Dragon Quest 10 for Wii U? There's just Dragon Quest, please. Maybe that's the secret title tomorrow, Dragon Quest 11.
That's another good guess, too.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about how awesome the Treehouse streaming has been so far. I'm definitely locked in for watching the next few days. I was kind of skeptical of it. I have loved getting these half-hour plus in-depth experience demos of games. Treehouse folks have been great. It's been cool to see the developers. We're going to have a more comprehensive reaction to that once we get through all 3 days. If you haven't been watching it, definitely I recommend checking it out.
Stellar job.
Let's talk about our overall thoughts and reactions for what we've learned so far, both the digital media event and the games that were announced. Evan, you're up first.
Digital media event, like I said earlier, 1,000 times better than last year. I mean, I think I tweeted the first 15 minutes just blew last year's presentation out of the way. A great job. Wii U's lineup is very sparse for 2014. That is problematic. The games, though, in general, look great. Nintendo exceeded my expectations. Splatoon, I could not be more giddy about, and the new Zelda blew me away. My expectations were pretty low. Nintendo definitely met them and surpassed them. So I'm really excited. The Wii U has a brighter future now than it did yesterday, which is good. And I think 3DS, we already heard about some cool titles coming. I think there's going to be a couple more surprises. So it's been a good event so far.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Evan. I went in a little bit skeptical, a little bit concerned, a little bit apprehensive, but I actually feel that I'm not going to question if there's a digital media event for future E3s because this one was
Nope.
done so well. I was disappointed with it last year. This year, it's been so much more improved, and I think it's a great way for Nintendo to handle E3 if it has to do that in the future. And I was really happy that we got new game concepts. We have a large number of games to look forward to both this year and next year, although mostly next year. And there's just a lot to be excited about with Wii U. It is not a dead system. We have a lot to look forward to. And the games that we already knew about look even better. And I can be happy about that. From a mass market, I want everybody to buy a Wii U perspective. I unfortunately don't feel that there were a lot of system sellers out there or things that could potentially push people off the fence. I don't know if that means that a price drop will be necessary in the future or killer bundles. I love Nintendo, and I think that anybody who loves Nintendo and hasn't gotten a Wii U yet, those hardcore fans, they're going to get on board with this year or next year, whether it's Smash or it's Zelda or it's Xenoblade. I just don't know if this is enough to push Wii U to be like a huge success or to even catch up with GameCube. I wanted to. I think there's potential there. I just don't know yet, and I want to be happily surprised versus naively optimistic. We'll see. Listeners, it is now your turn to let us know what you think. What are your reactions to the show? Have you been delighted, happy, disappointed? If you're just joining us now, I've noticed a lot more people join. I'm sorry we did have a very last-minute schedule change, and we had to start much earlier, but you can check out the show, and then let us know what you think in the comments. Send in feedback to show@nfmagazine.com, and if we have an extra show this week, we will definitely let you know in advance on Twitter. You can follow me at @thisisnoah. You can follow Evan at @Evan Campbell. And of course, you've got to follow the NF Magazine Twitter to get caught up with everything going on over there, which is @Nintendo Force. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch your show. We can't wait to hear what you think. And all of that and more is going to be in our show, in our next show. Inevitably, we will be talking about E3 for weeks to come, I'm sure. Thank you again.
And don't forget, there's an NF Magazine sale going on, and the issue with Professor Layton is on the cover right now with Phoenix Wright. So be sure to check that out. The digital copy's out. I think the magazines are going out to subscribers. But there is a 3-day sale if you're catching this on Tuesday through Thursday of E3.
Thanks again, everybody, and we'll be back soon.